deal has been struck between Israel and Hamas that will see 50 hostages, women and children, released in exchange for a 4-day pause in fighting set to begin tomorrow morning. The agreement should also see 150 Palestinian women and children held in Israeli jails released and an increase in humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. Israel's coalition government signed off the deal following talks into the early hours of this morning. The truce could be extended further as long as more hostages are freed. It'll be the first break in fighting in the brutal war that has claimed thousands of lives since the October the 7th terror attack. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the agreement does not mean the war will stop and has vowed to complete the mission to eliminate Hamas and return the rest of the hostages. Let's go straight to Jerusalem now, where we can speak to journalist Noga Tarnopolsky. Noga, hello. We spoke to you yesterday. Progress has been made, but only after an entire night of debating at the Israeli Knesset. So maybe you can set out for people, if you will, the differences of opinion that were being expressed overnight, because I think many people will just assume that all Israelis are absolutely united in prioritising the return of hostages absolutely before all else.
Well, good evening. Anyone who makes that assumption is not completely wrong, because the Israeli people, the citizens of Israel, are almost entirely united in this aim that the citizens who were taken hostage on October 7th have to be released. But they're pretty much equally united in that after the hostages are released, that Hamas has to be eliminated from any ability to threaten Israel on its southern border. So it's a double kind of a parallel point of view. What happened in the government yesterday is a bit different than what the people, the general public feels. So the prime minister, the defense minister, and the members of the military forces who were there argued for this deal, which, by the way, is still not a completely done deal, but it looks like it's getting there. And then there were the ultra-right-wing members of Netanyahu's cabinet who ended up voting against this, argued that it is absolutely a travesty and that the attack itself on October 7th occurred because its mastermind, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, was released by Prime Minister Netanyahu as part of a hostage exchange deal for a soldier, one of 1,000 Palestinian prisoners released for the soldier Gilad Shalit in 2011. And he went on to become the Hamas leader and then to perpetrate this attack. So their argument is it is an absolute mistake to release Palestinian terrorists, and that Israel will pay a high price for it, and that the war should not be stopped, even if these hostages are sacrificed. The point of view that won out is one that says that the basic duty the state owes its people is that they should be able to sleep in safety at night, and that if they can't, that the government will save them.
And I believe the debating was so passionate and so ferocious and so sort of heartfelt on both sides that it took till 7 in the morning for any kind of consensus to be achieved?
Yeah, I think it was actually 3 in the morning.
Right.
But it was definitely very early in the morning. And I do think it's important to say that despite this Israeli vote, which does commit the Israeli government to this, you know, they're dealing with a terror organization. So nobody in Hamas is taking a vote. We're talking about decisions made by kind of different chieftains. There are no guarantees. And I was pretty shocked to find out that the Israeli government is not determining which of the hostages will be released. For example, due, you know, medical emergencies or their young ages or anything. The Mossad director, David Barnea, is in Doha in Qatar right now, among other things, to receive from Hamas their list of names of Israeli hostages who they propose to release, about 50 hostages, as you said, over 4 or 5 days in different groups. So the families right now in Israel are just sitting in a kind of vortex, waiting to find out if their loved one will be on this terrorist group written list or not.
I mean, the whole thing obviously has been utterly agonizing for the families of the hostages taken away on that day. The kind of intelligence that has filtered through to the West in terms of anything about where the hostages are, how they've been looked after, where they've been kept, which really effectively which are alive and which, heaven forbid, may be dead, has been so non-existent. But what we seem to have gathered is that there are different factions of Hamas who might be detaining different hostages in different places. Are you under the impression that there might be, difficulties of coordination? It's not as if, they're all kept in one place or one prison or one hospital and they can all just be disgorged at once and taken to safety. They're in all different places, controlled by all different people, and nobody's really coordinating anything about it.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. It's an anarchic, agonizing situation. And it's also difficult to know to what an extent these organizations can be relied on. So we do know that at least different Hamas factions and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is a completely different group, are holding hostages. We know from public statements made by one of 4 women hostages who were released, the only one who spoke in public, that a woman in her 80s called Yocheved Lipschitz, she described being forced to walk for hours in dark tunnels, in dark, humid tunnels, and that she was kept, she said, under hellish circumstances. So we have that information. We also know that an Israeli soldier who was murdered, apparently, while being held a hostage in Gaza, Noa Marciano, was being held just in a flat in North Gaza near the Shifa hospital. That's what the army has said. So we have very little information. It's muddled. And I have to tell you, I am not sure, given the situation, the Israeli government has said that it considers Hamas the sovereign and it holds Hamas responsible for whatever happens to these hostages, whoever's holding them. But that said, it seems to be a chaos, and I'm not sure what even the Israeli government knows for a fact about where these soldiers, where these hostages are or what their condition may be.
Noga Tarnopolsky, thank you very much indeed.